do you already see a difference, and do you expect to see a difference this fall in the media's decision of how it covers this election and Trump in particular, in light of, right? Like, it's so hard to sort of, for a lot of reasons, take stock of apologizing for what one did in the past. But I think if most people were to do it again, I think the treatment of the Hunter Biden laptop or the COVID origin, some of the 2020 questions,
those two in particular,
wrong,
yes,
right? I think most people would honest journalists today who may have been on the wrong side of that would quietly at least admit that they were wrong and badly wrong and humbled by it, even though public forces may make it difficult for them to feel like they can say that in public in so many words. Do you think that that's going to have an effect nonetheless on changing the way that they approach coverage of the candidates this fall versus the way they might have approached it in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think different institutions are different and in different places. I do think that there was a sense, I think, among Democrats and a lot and newsroom, and the Trump the sort of Trump coalition was like, newsrooms were less democratic than they were anti-Trump in a certain way. If you look at the coalition of people who supported President Trump, it was non-college educated, not in the big cities. And so newsrooms were very much, even if the reporters themselves, whatever it is they had, in a culture that was pretty uncomprehending of Trump. And there was a sense that there must have been, when he won in particular, that there just must have been some trick. Like maybe it was the Russians, maybe it was Facebook.
They didn't get it. It's just something happened.
Yeah. And that led to a kind of attempt to explain that, produced the Cambridge Analytica thing, if you remember that, Facebook conspiracy. That, and I think there is more of a realization of the politics that no, he's very popular and that's why he might win, which produces a more straightforward kind of coverage. I mean, I think they also I feel that when the word, when people who feel like the media was too hard on President Trump, for instance, his what I would say, I think myself, I could be wrong, was his pretty messy mishandling of COVID at various times, and that the only acceptable party line on the right is that Donald Trump is without blame. The media was horribly biased against him. I have two examples: the Hunter Biden laptop and the coverage of the COVID origin story. And any criticism of Donald Trump can be dismissed, or any coverage that we don't like can be dismissed as part of this broader theory I have about the media, which is why they got the Hunter laptop thing wrong. I feel like it's sort of a defense mechanism and a way to avoid reckoning with things that actually happen in the world, get written about.
This is less about the retrospective relitigation of it. You and I have shared our views on that, but I just wanted to. I was just curious, going
forward, it'll be messy.
That is going to have an impact on this time being covered differently than it was in 2020, which I know I'm different than you a little bit, but I think it was completely botched in 2020. But do you think it's going to be different this time around?
So I think newsrooms are going to try to be more restrained, basically stay in their lane, as we were talking about before, a bit more.
You do think so?
I think they will try to be, but that it will wind up being sort of imperceptible, because I think people in politics experience media through what is the dumbest headline that anybody wrote, and it will that went viral on Twitter, and they're not going to be, these big institutions aren't going to be clear enough. I don't think they've really decided where they are. They're going to be messy. They're going to be all over the map. They're going to make mistakes in all sorts of directions and do stuff that winds up. I don't think a sort of normal person observing it is going to say, "Oh wow, they pivoted." And in fact, and a normal person observing it is going to find a lot of stuff to object to.
I think no matter who wins the election, I think if that direction is a perceptible difference, I think it will have not a small but a major positive impact on the country. I think the media landscape is so diverse that part of what you say is if you go into the lowest common denominator and people make their assessments of the media based on that, then I think that'll be what it is. But if there is a perceptible difference, and I think the public's generally pretty smart, actually. It doesn't collectively get it right every time, but I think the American way is predicated on a pretty well-founded trust in the public over the course of time. I think if the public has the right sniff test to say, hey, This was a little bit different in terms of the way what we were served up than, feeling like there were bans on what. Remember back in 2020, it wasn't just those two stories. It was against an environment where you were banned from even saying certain things in the lead up to that, right? Your social media accounts were locked. Then the media stories you got were the opposite headlines of what you weren't allowed to say in contravention. That this time around, it feels just like categorically different.